Why am I doing this? That's all right. Testing. Testing. Test now. Good. If we could go live, that would be wonderful.
We are live.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Let me pull up the agenda. I maybe should have been prepared for that. All right. So at 5:01 p.m., I am going to call the Wednesday, April 23rd Quality of Life Committee meeting to order. May I please have a roll call?
Counselor Castro,
Presente.
Counselor Chavez,
Counselor Travis, are you there? I will text her.
Counselor Garcia,
Present.
Counselor Faulkner.
Here.
Madam Chair.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, well, we will go ahead and keep going because I see her name and we do have a quorum. So moving on to approval of the agenda. Ah, there she is. Here for Councilor Chavez. Approval of the agenda. We do have one change. We will be delaying the presentation overview of current housing conditions in Santa Fe. There are some additional information that we wanted to make sure that we had in that presentation that was not quite ready. So rather than bifurcate it into two, we decided to wait until we had everything. So I apologize for that, as I know it's an important one, but we'll get there soon. Other than that, any changes to the agenda?
No changes.
All right, can I get a motion to approve as amended?
Motion to approve as amended.
Second. Motion and a second. We are hybrid, so a roll call, please.
Counselor Castro,
C.
Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Counselor Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Faulkner.
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
motion passes.
Wonderful. Moving on to the consent agenda. We have two items pulled off the consent, items F and H. F was pulled off by myself and Counselor Castro. H was pulled off by me. Anything else that anybody would like to remove at this time? And if not, motion to approve as amended?
Motion to approve as amended. Second?
Motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Counselor Castro,
Yes.
Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Counselor Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Faulkner.
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
motion passes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. These are some meaty items. So as we have done in governing body meetings, we'll try to limit our questioning to 10 minutes per person and go around as many times as possible. Counselor Faulkner, you are very good at being a timekeeper. Can you do that again today? Thank you so much. No problem. So our first item, it's consideration of resolution number 2025 to be named later, sponsored by myself and Counselor Faulkner. It's a resolution authorizing and directing the widening of Zia Road to accommodate a necessary deceleration lane using adjacent unimproved land comprising approximately 1% of Candelito Park on its far northern boundary, and directing the city manager to designate an agent to apply for a lot line adjustment and any other administrative steps required as the governing body's agent. We have Rebecca Minook Herman here to present and answer questions. I know that there has been a lot of questions about this one from the community, from counselors. So I would like to have a presentation to start, and then we will go ahead and jump into questioning.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I think
Hold on, Counselor Chavez, is everything okay? Okay.
and my IT is up here just to help me get the presentation showing for you all.
Marcella, Director Lamboy needs the Zoom link. Can you make sure that she has it? Let me try sending again.
Okay, Madam Chair, I think I'm ready to go if you'd like me to go ahead and proceed. Oh, I think we,
We've lost a couple committee members. Oh, there you are. We've lost one committee member. Yeah, we still have a quorum. Yeah. All right, go ahead. Let's get started.
thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Rebecca Minnock Herman, and I'm here to present on the resolution to authorize an agent to apply for a lot line adjustment to.
Sorry, one moment. Can we change the view on the Zoom so we have speaker view so that speaker view so the speaker view on the Zoom so that we see the presentation as large as possible? Oh, that didn't work. Go to speaker and then Rebecca speak again and we'll see what happens.
Okay. Nope.
Is your mic on?
Test. Test.
Yeah, okay. IT, do you happen to have any resources to assist us here? If not, we'll survive. Pardon? I have no idea what that means. Go ahead. Henry to the rescue. And we will, of course, be adding this presentation to the agenda. But Civic Clerk does lock us out at a certain point, so did not have the opportunity to do so prior to the agenda being published. Oh, there we go. It's perfect.
Someone email me the presentation?
I have not emailed you the presentation, but I would be happy to do so.
That would be awesome.
Okay. It's okay. So I'll go ahead and start over. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Rebecca Minnock Herman. I'm an assistant city attorney with the city attorney's office. And I'm here to present on the resolution tonight. So this resolution pertains to Zia Station development. The staff report that was submitted in support of this development plan when it originally came before the city. It describes the station as a mixed-use planned unit development designed as a pedestrian and transit-oriented community, utilizing the site's multimodal transit options, including the Rail Runner Station, Rail Trail, and Santa Fe Trails bus service. The preliminary development plan, the governing body approved in the early morning hours of April 9th, 2021, established a planned unit development that it required to be developed in phases and subphases. The first phase, phase 1A, includes 244 multifamily units on 10.16 acres. The development plan also includes road improvements, which the applicant is required as a condition of the plan's approval to complete before the city issues any certificate of occupancy or allow any vertical construction. And this is a depiction of the area at issue that was in the traffic impact analysis, which was provided as Exhibit C with the resolution. Okay, so the city required the roadway improvements to be part of phase 1. The city almost always requires some types of public improvements in order to offset impacts that development will have on the city. The developer is responsible for constructing and paying for those improvements, but they are required improvements that the city must do for the city before starting vertical construction. In this instance, the road improvements include the following: Zia Road modifications to create 3 eastbound left turn lanes and one through right turn lane with associated bike lane and sidewalk improvements. Realignment of the northern extent of Galisteo Road, approximately 180 feet west, a new extension of Galisteo Road north of Zia Road to serve phase one, a mid-block Hawk activated crosswalk. So that's a pedestrian crosswalk with mid-street pedestrian refuge island, a gated emergency access drive between St. Francis and Galisteo, and also a deceleration lane. Excuse me. The deceleration lane is referenced in the traffic impact analysis in your packet on page 45 of Exhibit C. The traffic impact analysis recommended expanding Zia Road to include east and westbound right turn deceleration lanes from Zia Road onto Galisteo Road, designed to NM.SAM standards. So that's State Access Management Manual standards. And so how those standards are applied is a professional determination that needs to be made by a traffic engineer. Mr. Leroy Pacheco is the traffic engineer that did the analysis on behalf of the city as a member of the city's development review team. And it is my understanding that in order to comply with the SAM standards, it was Mr. Pacheco's conclusion that the deceleration lane of this length is critical for reducing rear end crashes and also addressing other safety matters related to the intersection. And so I believe that Mr. Pacheco is going to be joining us this evening, just so committee members are aware if you do have questions about his analysis and standards. I believe he had jury duty this afternoon, and so I think he was trying to get over here from the courthouse, but he's planning to be here this evening. So in order to create a deceleration lane of the length that Mr. Pacheco identified as necessary to meet those standards, the deceleration lane would need to be expanded into the city property known as Candelario Park. And so this is just an image of Candelario Park as it exists today. It is a 6.6 acre park. The park has a developed area with playground, grass, trees, basketball courts, and water fountains. And then you can see north and east of the developed area is a large unimproved area. It's kind of shaped like a backwards L, sort of wrapping around the neighborhood area in the upper left portion in the image.
Can we go ahead and move sorry, I apologize, the text box so we can get the full image there. Thank you. I appreciate that. Go on, sorry.
And the far northern edge of the unimproved portion of the park extends all the way up to Zia Road. So the city received the Candelario Park through a couple of different dedications over time, but the part of the park that is at issue in the matter we're discussing today was dedicated to the city by a developer named Western Development Company way back in 1978. And so that dedication plat is included in your packet as Exhibit A to the resolution. And here's kind of a close-up. This is not the full dedication plat that is in the packet, but this is kind of a blow-up of the part that includes the park dedication, both the image and the relevant language. And so what you can see here is this is another image that was created by city staff just to kind of show that, generally show the impacted area here. So that little yellow area up in the top portion of the plat dedicated area is the part that would be impacted by the resolution and a potential lot line adjustment. So that's kind of the background on the park and the deceleration lane. And so this slide is just to kind of discuss the process and kind of what we're doing here and recommended next steps as they're described in the resolution. So number one, expansion of the roadway according to safety standards recommended by the city's traffic engineer requires the city to expand Zia Road into that far northern edge of Candelario Park. The Candelario Park boundary should be adjusted on the plat in order to make way for that deceleration lane. The city, here's the property owner, would be the applicant for the lot line adjustment in order to adjust the park boundary, and then the governing body would be acting as the voice of the city in order to be the applicant and designate an agent. The code gives the land use director authority to review and approve lot line adjustments through both the summary procedure code section and also the definitions for re-subdivision. In our code, a re-subdivision includes a lot line adjustment. The city as in order to apply for a lot line adjustment, the city as the property owner would need to designate someone referred to in the code as an agent to be the person to sign off and submit an application for that lot line adjustment on the city's behalf. And then upon receiving an application for a lot line adjustment, the land use director reviews and determines whether to approve the application. And alternatively, after receiving that application, the land use director may refer an application for a summary subdivision to the Planning Commission for review and decision, either in response to public input received or on the land use director's own initiative. However, according to Code Section 14-3.7 D1, no preliminary plat or hearing is required for this proceeding. And so I just wanted to make that clear, because after some further discussion and review of this code section, even if this were to go to Planning Commission on the land use director's recommendation, it would not be going for a public hearing. It would likely be a discussion item. And so what happens if the city does not take any action on this matter? There's a few possible outcomes. One is potential litigation against the city, or there could be a deceleration lane built contrary to the city traffic engineer's recommended standards, like specifically one that's shorter than what he's recommending to meet the safety requirements that he's identified. And also there could potentially be extended disruption to traffic due to any construction delays caused by inaction at this point, since the construction of this project is already underway. And so that concludes my presentation, and I would be happy to stand for any questions that the committee might have for me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and let Councilor Faulkner and I start as the sponsors, and then we will pop around. Oh, good. You're already timing me. Thank you. So thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. I do want to say just in general, I know that this has been a topic that has caused some consternation, and I wanted to sponsor this, and Councilor Faulkner, I'll let you speak for yourself, but we've had this conversation. Zia Station for me was a really important project, especially as a District 4 councilor, where Districts 3 and 4 take so much of the residential new builds in the city. And so that was one of the reasons why Zia Station was a really important project. And I know there was a lot of conversation around how we would navigate the complexity of the St. Francis Zia intersection. So we have the railway going through, we have the trail, we have a state road, and then the city road coming up to a state road, as well as all this new traffic that would be influxing, or is that a word? new traffic coming in from this development in an already pretty congested intersection. I know it very well. It's how I get downtown from my house. So that was one of the big pieces that why I really wanted to take this on. I do understand for the neighborhood, this has been a development that has actually caused some division. I know there's been a lot of individuals against it. I've also know that there was a subsection of the neighborhood for it. I've had a lot of people who live in the neighborhood who are, excited about this, and a lot that are not. I think one of the important things about, as we continue to look at this process and looking at, we do have this unimproved area of the park. But I would be interested in the future of how we explore connectivity within that park, of maybe looking at trails that could be improved within there to move forward. So I just wanted to state that. I know that there has been a lot of conversation and question. Rebecca, can you talk to why this was the course that was recommended by the city attorney's office to take to do this process? This is unique. This isn't something that we see every day. So I know that you all put a lot of time and energy into considering what would be a way that we do this by following our own process for a lot line adjustment, while also recognizing that we are the owner of the properties that we want the lot line adjusted for, as well as the fact that that is an administrative process in nature. That everybody who comes in for a lot line adjustment, that is an administrative process. Yet we as a governing body have to be able to direct it. And we also have to have, it is important to us that we do things in a public manner. So if you can talk to why this was the route taken, I would appreciate that.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question. So in this situation, there is not going to be any increase in the number of lots, nor increase in the number in the amount of density in the area. If either of those things were to occur, there would need to be a subdivision. So that would need to be a process that would need to go through the Planning Commission. However, our code, specifically City Code Section 14-3.7D, gives the land use director the authority to approve these lot line adjustments when there's no increase in the number of lots, when you're just changing boundaries or shapes or sizes of a lot. And so in this case, there's already an approved plat, there's an approved development plan, and that has all gone before the land use boards, some of it, parts of it through the governing body, parts of it through the Planning Commission. But this portion, the code reserves for the land use director. I know that there has been some discussion about whether or not this constitutes vacation of a plat. We do have a code section that discusses vacation of plat specifically in Chapter 23. However, the analysis in that section speaks specifically to vacations of rights of way. And the analysis that's required is all focused on what happens if a right of way is impacted and the surrounding property owners, and how surrounding property owners might be affected by losing a right of way. So if there was a road that went through a property that property owners needed to use in order to not be landlocked, that would definitely be something where those property owners would be impacted. There might be impacts on the scheme of travel, but that's the only kind of analysis that's required for vacating a plat. Additionally, here there's no change in ownership. The park belongs to the city. Zia Road is a city road, and so it would just be moving the boundary of the park inwards, reducing the size of the park boundary of the total park area by about 1% in order to make room for this deceleration lane. And so for those reasons, because the land use director, the code gives the land use director authority in these circumstances, when it's just the adjustment of a single lot line, our recommended procedure was to go through the land use director, and the governing body is only acting as the applicant here and not the adjudicator. So basically the land use director would be the authority, the governing body is the applicant, the property owner.
Thank you so much. I think that is important. I actually went back to see how much time we spent on Zia Station. We had about approximately 10 hours of planning commission meeting and approximately 10 hours of governing body. So this has been a very well vetted, project overall, and very well discussed, as well as, has also gone through district court and the Court of Appeals. So we've had a lot of conversation about this. And so I know that it's been challenging and really important to you. I'm at 6 minutes. Thank you. for you guys to figure out how to best move forward with this next piece after, you know, this has been such a robust conversation over the last 5 years, 4 years, 5 years, however long it's been. So I also, the other thing that, you know, when we were discussing this resolution was a discussion on necessity. And I had brought up the fact that our city's Complete Streets manual had changed, really looking at, you know, some of the work that our internal traffic engineer had been doing with looking at traffic calming and how we build roads to calm traffic. So can you speak a bit to those conversations? I know Mr. Pacheco will be here at some point. But for me, that was a really, really important piece, is the city, you know, taking another look to make sure that this really was necessary for the standards that we would like to see, the standards that we have to follow. I know there is some complications with the fact that we are moving into St. Francis, and that does become a state road, and that the train is there. But also just based on some of the changes that the city has made to Complete Streets over the last few years.
So I could speak to what I know of the new traffic manual and how it applies to this case. The new traffic manual does contemplate using those SAM standards and does require the city to use those SAM standards when we're in an intersection that is close to a state highway, and also I believe the train had an impact on that. And so I think that was, my understanding is that that was part of the traffic engineer's consideration, was that the SAM standards did require him to consider all of those factors and do a bigger deceleration lane because of those elements of the development and because of what the intersection that it was close to.
Okay, thank you. And have we had a chance to talk internally onto some of our public works staff around this?
Yes. And so I know that there's a concern about safety. Mr. Pacheco had spoken specifically to concerns about preventing rear end crashes, the deceleration lane of this length. It was his, the conclusion of his analysis was that this would reduce the number of rear end crashes.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So just to go over it again, you know, so if we approve this, essentially we will be assigning an agent, and that person will take this through the land use process. And that is an administrative process that is a decision by the land use director. And we have Director Lamboy here. And it states that the code that, you know, in some scenarios, the director may take it to the planning commission if they feel that they need input from the planning commission on this. Am I understanding that correctly?
That is correct.
And I'm understanding that that would be the process regardless of who the owner of the property was.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. You've covered some of the things that have brought up about vacating the plot. There was another conversation around the use of, I will stop then. Councilor Faulkner, to you, and we'll come back to me if these things don't get covered.
So having been on the planning commission when this case came before the planning commission, this was discussed at length. It was one of our longer hearings. And so this isn't a surprise to the community. It might be for the community that wasn't engaged in the planning commission process, but the reality is this was discussed at great length with a lot of thought put into it. And from where I sit, one of the reasons I co-sponsored this piece of legislation is traffic is a huge problem in Santa Fe. We're running on town streets and we need city streets. And I don't think that this little sliver of land is going to impact the loss of that sliver of land to make that deceleration lane. The benefit for having the deceleration lane is way more important to the city as a whole than losing that small sliver of land. And I don't see it as a very active park. I think people use the park. I do agree with Councilor Cassett that I think both of us have committed to trying to connect that park to other places, because the development, the philosophy around the development was aimed at connectivity and walkability. And so I'm willing as a counselor to say, I'm happy to give up this little sliver of land to help with our streets and traffic issues and use this as an opportunity to connect some more trails in Santa Fe. And so that's kind of the position I'm taking on it is sometimes we have to look at what's better for the city as a whole and not just one smaller community. And so I am supporting this legislation and sponsoring it because I do feel like this will be a better decision for the city in total and for that development. I know that with development, the surrounding neighbors are thinking about what's going to happen to them without sometimes considering that they're going to have new neighbors. And if they make things difficult for their new neighbors, who are going to be the residents that will be living in these developments, then we've already divided community. And so to me, I try to be very mindful that when we're making land use decisions, we're considering not only the adjacent properties, but also the community members who are going to be living in the developments that are coming online. And so that is my thinking on this situation, is that we have an opportunity to connect this development to other parks and trails. We have the opportunity to make traffic better in this part of town. And so to me, it's a win-win scenario. Even though some community members are aggravated, I think change is difficult. And so if we look at change as an opportunity to grow and to do different things, we will see that not all change is going to be as bad as we feel like it's going to be.
Thank you, Counselor. Did you have any additional questions at this time? All right. Counselor Chavez, I see your hand up. At the timer.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to speak because we did have a long conversation at Public Works on Monday, and I think that like we came to a good middle ground. You know, I didn't hear from the public, but I saw a lot of nods, and you know, we were discussing how this could be presented by the time it gets to governing body, so the public feels like they have more information and have a voice. So the big concern that was discussed at Public Works was the fact that although the deceleration lane was discussed through the Planning Commission process and governing body process, its impact on the park never was. And I could say that it never was. I was on the Planning Commission and governing body during that time. When you look at the map, like you can tell there's impact, but it was never emphasized. So there is a part of our community that feels like they're kind of being caught off guard about this. And it seems like they would be okay with it if we took the time to provide clear information. So I would just want to thank you for the presentation, because I was like, please have it in the packet before governing body, and it's already in there. So this gives the community plenty of time to look at this so that they're well informed. And I think everyone knows that intersection safety is going to be a priority. Like it's our responsibility as a city to make sure that everyone is safe and that, you know, it's not a headache for our daily commute. And so ultimately everything is being considered. So that's the case. I do think that this community, with the new information like emphasized and very clear, should have an opportunity to speak to this. You know, so based on timing next week, I know I will recommend that this item be moved to after matters from the floor, so that we could encourage that neighborhood and those individuals who have concern to have time to review the packet and bring any questions for us to kind of hear and consider prior to voting on this item. But I think that everyone in that community wants safety. They just also want transparency, and they really feel like this point was missed during the conversation around Zia Station, which I will say, you know, it's not an unfair perception that they have at all. I think that it's fair to say that it was never truly discussed. So yeah, we need this to pass. Again, another clarity is the fact that this is just to apply. So this is for us to have the agents who apply for this. And we got kind of taken super deep into everything when I'm like, well, this just needs to happen for us to consider the lot line adjustment. So it's necessary whether Director Lamboy decides that no, you know, based on community input, this needs to go to planning commission or complexity or whatever. I know that, Director, you had mentioned that, planning commission could be a consideration. However, at Public Works, we also were like, well, that's a little redundant. If the information is present, we're giving individuals the opportunity to come speak at governing bodies so we could listen before voting. It's basically the same thing. But we just want to make sure that information's there. So I just want to thank staff for having that information available already. And I just wanted to summarize our discussion from Monday.
Thank you, Councilor Chavez. That was actually a big component for why we brought the presentation to quality of life today, was because of the discussion that, we really wanted to make this information was out. So make sure the information was out. So thank you, Rebecca, for getting ready to present so quickly. Councilor Castro?
Yeah, thank you so much. So I did pull this item, and in particular, it was based on some conversations that I had with those constituents between our Public Works meeting and our Quality of Life meeting, and also the different topic. Public Works, very specifically, we're talking about roads and efficiency, and in Quality of Life, we're talking more specifically about use and what kind of land and input we want for our community. I think one of the big concerns that I've heard from community members about doing this at governing body is the format, in the sense that folks do have their 2 minutes to air concerns, but there is no back and forth. There is no discussion. Questions aren't really answered. One other thing that I was very concerned about in that meeting on Monday was the undertone of this project is already underway. So I feel very uncomfortable with being put in a position where we need to make a decision because a project is halfway underway. And the question I have for you, Ms. Minna-Kerman, in particular, when you said that we were at risk of litigation or a lawsuit, what would that be and what does that look like?
It could take potentially all sorts of forms. I think that one that, that would be of particular concern is that there is a private property right at issue here. There is a developer who has been who has had their plans approved by the city at this point. And this was a requirement that was imposed on the developer by the city, not arbitrarily. It was something that we needed them to do, and that the city has every right to ask them to do. But it's a requirement that is imposed, and by not allowing them to move forward with the development because of a city requirement. I mean, that would put them in a position where they're not able to develop their property. And so there could potentially be a takings issue there, depending on, the facts of the case. I don't know. I mean, it would, have to go, we have to see where this goes. But so that could be a potential factor there. And also, we could be challenged for using a process that's not required, for causing potentially undue delay and expense. Not only for the developer, but potentially, other people that, I have no idea who they are, but that might be impacted by this intersection. So there may be, there are all sorts of things that could happen that I don't know at this point, but litigation is always a potential concern.
And as a user of the bike and pedestrian trail in this area as well, it's super important to me that we consider the usage of the neighbors, and what they were considering would be the usage, in theory, in perpetuity when this park was dedicated. Have road diets or slowing down traffic been considered as an exception, or in a way that we can not have to do this adjustment and still create a safe environment for pedestrians, bikes, and cars?
I do not have an answer to that question. You may want to talk to our traffic engineer. Can I go ahead?
Yes, please, and thank you.
Okay.
I need to swear myself.
No, it's not a public hearing, but thank you.
Thank you, Chair Castro. Councilor Castro, Chair Councilor Castro. First, I'd like to apologize. I'm a little bit late. I was in jury duty selection, so here I am. So this project was reviewed by Public Works carefully for both parks and traffic. And So, I just want to make sure that we understand, we did review this whole situation.
Sure. The question specifically, though, is around road diets and diminishing speeds.
Yes. This is a very complicated intersection with a federal highway, a state railroad, and the depot and such, and the development that's being proposed. The traffic impact study considered all modes of traffic, motorized, pedestrian, and bicyclist, and the intersection will result in the first hawk signal pedestrian-oriented crosswalk across Zia Road at Galisteo Street. Can you hear me? Not so well.
I can,
So
I
We
guess.
can. Amanda, can you, or, excuse me, Counselor Chavez, can you hear? Okay.
So the reason I'm asking specifically is because as Councillor Faulkner and I sit on the MPO, one of our main goals in that joint committee, which is state DOT, county, and city, is street diets and making sure that we prioritize bike and pedestrians when we are doing these redevelopments. That's why I'm asking about diminishing speeds, because that's something that we've asked for as MPO throughout the city. And also if we've looked at making it a smaller road.
all of the complexities of the traffic that's moving through that intersection, railroad, principal arterial of a city street, which is Zia, and a federal highway, that intersection, I'm hazarding a guess, probably carries 50,000 cars a day through it. So the amenity that I would say prioritizes pedestrians and bicyclists in this pretty pedestrian heavy zone, which is a train depot and now a multifamily unit right in the development that was approved. The signal itself, the Hawk signal, is a prioritization of pedestrian traffic crossing Zia, which is pretty unique. It's the first in the city. So I think my answer is a yes. All modes were considered. Pedestrian bicyclist safety was prioritized to the best of the good of all modes. Motorized, pedestrian, and bicyclists all are looked at in terms of demand and volume, and pedestrians and bicyclists were definitely prioritized for safety. And it sort of fits in with a long-range vision of the intersection. I think Councillor Faulkner mentioned it. I mean, years ago, as was mentioned at Public Works, the city invested millions in an underpass under St. Francis at that location. So we are definitely prioritizing the safety of those modes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, engineer. And it does reassure me that we are at least trying to attempt to bring these two visions together. And I think Councillor Councillor Garcia will speak to this, because Bicycle Pedestrian Subcommittee also has sort of road diets and slower traffic as a priority. The other piece, and I'm not sure, actually, this might be you, Marcella, I apologize. There was a comment on Monday that there was a petition with over 400 signatures. And I did ask for that to be part of the packet today. Have we received those signatures from community? Did anybody give those to folks on Monday? Do we know?
They would have, I mean, I know that we did not receive them as part of the quality of life team. I would imagine they would go to the city clerk if that is where they've been sent. But yeah, I have.
And they had a hard copy here on Monday. I guess we didn't get a copy of that, but I would like to at least give some time and honor to those 400 folks that did feel that there was not enough community engagement, that their voices were not heard, and that they had to go to the lengths of creating a petition and sending it around to their neighbors and coming here on Monday for Public Works, and probably will be here when we vote at the governing body. The 2 minutes at governing body just to speak to us, thank you, doesn't seem to be what they feel is enough community input, and it isn't the process that they necessarily feel is adequate. So I want to caution us in the future before we get halfway through a project and then have to come for approval and talk to community at that point. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Garcia, do you have anything to? Okay. I did want to follow up with just a couple points. One, wanted to clarify that even if this goes to Planning Commission, that does not become a public hearing based on the lot line adjustment process per our code. So I think that, Counselor Chavez I agree with that conversation around, the way that we can really, and we've done this in the past with some of these issues, is by moving it to after petitions from the floor. The other thing is that, I understand, Counselor Castro, the concern around public engagement. I do just want to recall, and it's actually, I believe that you are actually the only member of the governing body who did not see this. So you didn't get to live through this with all of us. But there was actually quite a bit of public engagement. Well, there was quite a bit of process for the city. As I mentioned, 10 hours each, planning commission and governing body, but there was also a subsection of the neighborhood that worked very closely with the developer. And I cannot remember, the details, but I do know some of the leaders of that crew that was really working hard about some of the things that they wanted to see with the development and a lot of these conversations. So it is interesting because this is such a unique situation. This was an oversight. I mean, this should have been taken care of, in April of 21. And so that is unfortunate. But this is a development that has had a lot of attention. The process has been litigated, and I think that it is an important conversation that we continue to struggle with and continue to talk about with the code update. And I know that that's part of those discussions with the general plan, and the code update is looking at how do other communities do some of this public engagement around land use issues. The flip side of that is what's really interesting is, there's been a lot of, there's actually been a lot of research around, the balance of public engagement, because we've seen situations where developments become far more expensive because of process. And so how do we find the right balance of the timing of process has been, and that is a wider conversation that I think that when we start to have that, this is going to be one of those cases that we are going to be referencing back to, because this really was, we learned a lot here. This was a very educational land use case, and we are learning something again today regarding sometimes we have some oversights and how do we go about correcting them while also making sure that we are updating the public about what has changed, despite the fact that this is still a project that has been approved. I believe 7 members of the current governing body voted to approve this project. So that was all I had there. Councillor Faulkner?
I would like to concur with Councilor Chavez. I will totally support this item being moved so that the public has an opportunity to voice their opinions and their concerns in the public comment section of the agenda on City Council.
Thank you. Yeah, I imagine that's going to be something that most of us would be on board with. With that, if there are no other questions or comments, may I please have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. May I please have a roll call?
Counselor Castro?
No.
Counselor Chavez?
Yes.
Counselor Garcia?
No, and I'd like to explain my vote.
Counselor Faulkner?
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I-
Motion carries?
We have a motion? Yes. Motion carries.
Wonderful. Counselor Garcia, you can go to explain your vote. You be our timekeeper still, Counselor Faulkner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Big reason why I've voted no is I'm very concerned around, it seems the priority is being given over the developer's rights versus the rights of residents and their due process rights. As mentioned, over 20 hours was spent on this particular item between Planning Commission and governing body. And during that 20 hours, not once, and I'll reiterate, not once was it mentioned that parkland would be used, because there would be a very different conversation right now. I have also concerns around calling this space unimproved area, because this is open space. There's a big difference between unimproved and open space. And if you look at the map right now, you can see trails exist on that property. So framing it as unimproved really diminishes and does not properly represent what this property is. And lastly, I don't think anybody is arguing safety issues here. I think everybody is on board with safety. What folks are arguing is the process. And the process that's being utilized in this current situation is the wrong process that we're using for this particular lot line adjustment. So that's why I'm voting no. Thank you.
Unfortunately, not at this moment because we are closed, but don't worry, we will have a lovely, robust discussion about this at governing body. Councilor Castro, did you need something?
I have to be somewhere at 6. I just texted you. I have to,
Okay.
we'll stay as long as I can.
All right, well, let's move on quickly then. You should have told me at the beginning, I would have changed the order. So let's move on to the next item. And this is item, and I'm glad you are still here. Item H, it's consideration of resolution number 2025 to be numbered later, sponsored by Councilor Alma Castro, Councilor Sidney Lindell, and Councilor Michael Garcia. It's a resolution amending the Immigration Committee's purpose and membership. We have Marcy Iannarino as our Legislation and Policy Innovation Manager here as staff, but I will pass it on to you, Councilor Castro, as a sponsor. Oh, I know. Oh, I'm sorry. I did. I just because you had to go. All right. Wonderful. I just wanted to make sure you had a chance to speak. All right. I did pull this item. There should be, so I do see that there is an amendment. Okay. All right. Wonderful. So I did pull this item for, one, I really like the change to the purpose of the committee. I think that this was, a really important change to make. And I've been talking about our resident advisory committees for a while and how do we make them more beneficial. And I think this really was a very good step in the right direction of making sure that we are looking at why are we pulling people's time and energy into the city and making sure that it's useful and making sure that it's also, giving us what we need. Why are we relying on some of these resident advisory committees? So I do appreciate that. I am, I'm hesitant about putting a counselor on the committee at this time. And this goes again to this conversation around our resident advisory committees. I think we have some work to do in terms of determining which committees get a counselor. Right now, what kind of seems to happen, and we've seen this a couple times, is that a counselor happens to have a particular interest in a topic, and therefore we then put a counselor on that committee, and slowly over time, our committee assignments have grown. And it does, then we have other committees asking, why do they get a counselor and we don't? So that is my concern here, that I would, I'm not necessarily against it at this or in general, but I would like to see us have a more robust process to this. I know that I've had this conversation with Veterans Advisory Board. They had asked me to be their counselor liaison. We had some discussion as to whether or not we would formally do it. Initially, I was fully on board to let's go ahead. I still might want to do that, but right now I am okay with waiting. And so what I've been doing there is I treat it like a committee assignment. I'm there. I still am able to assist in the way a counselor would be able to assist in terms of bringing those resources and having these conversations with them. So that is where I am with this, and that's why I pulled this. And unfortunately, I was late to the draw in terms of discussing amendments, but I did just want to bring it to the Quality of Life Committee for further discussion. So also.
I can address a few of those if you don't mind. So I did work closely with the committee chair on this. In particular, had a conversation with him today about the resources that this committee needs. They have met twice, and we are struggling with resources, interpretation, access. So I will give the example, and I think I have with members of this body in the past, that when we're working with foreign governments, Mexican consulate, Guatemalan consulate, that they are much more formal than we are, and they require somebody who is a member of the governing body to speak. And so it was an interesting experience to work with the mayor in trying to get that event to happen. It is a benefit that I was able to have that conversation with him in a timely fashion. But I think it would have been much more feasible to have done that through the committee as opposed to having done that as an elected official on my own. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that on the 14th, this resolution did come to the Immigration Committee and it did get a recommendation to have a counselor as a non-voting member. And so in your packets, there is an amendment that reflects that. I find it very difficult to vote against something that an advisory board has recommended to us, in particular when it pertains to their own committee. And I definitely understand that it shouldn't be based on our personal interests. My intent in this resolution was really to show that the city of Santa Fe and the governing body wants to invest time, resources, and our time as counselors, and in the future when we have staff, our staff as counselors, to these committees. This committee in particular is really time sensitive. A lot of things are happening very quickly. We had a New Mexico resident who resides in Albuquerque, is a US citizen, detained in Tucson, Arizona, and they tried to deport him just this past week. These are not things that are foreign to our community. And I find it really important that regardless of if it's me or any counselor in the future, that we institutionalize our commitment to this body, because it is just as important as economic development, as public safety, and as bicycle and pedestrian subcommittee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Counselor Faulkner?
Commend Counselor Castro for her passion and the work she has been put into the immigrant population and protecting them. And she's has a very good heart and does a lot for this population. So I want to commend her for that. But I do have to say that one of the concerns that I have is I believe in community-driven politics. And so if we have a residents committee of any kind, I feel like having a city councilor or the mayor plugged into that committee shifts the power dynamic in a way that you can't genuinely know what the community wants, because there is a possibility that they are making decisions and voting on things because they don't want to anger or get on the bad side of an elected official. And for me, this isn't about this committee, it's about all the residents committees, that this needs to be a place where the residents of Santa Fe can have a voice and not feel intimidated by having an elected official on their board. And so for me, this is a principle thing. It's not about this committee. It's a philosophical belief of mine that if you have residents committees that are community driven, they need to be community driven. And my secondary concern is the people who are chairs of these committees right now, or who want to be part of these committees, are all great leaders. But at some point, we may not get a great leader. And it's placing the residents committees in a position where there could be a tyrannical leader who could, and we see it happening right now on the national level. You have a tyrannical leader that then uses their power to intimidate the residents. And this is one of the biggest concerns I have, is these committees are designed to hear from the community, and plugging in someone with a certain amount of power, with a certain amount of influence, will absolutely change the way that committee will behave and vote and strategize and use tactics. It will change all of it. And so that's my biggest concern, is I don't think counselors need to be on these committees to have influence. I think we can attend the meetings, we can talk to the membership, but there's a whole list of things we can do that doesn't plug elected officials into something that belongs to the community. So I just want to explain them.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Chavez?
Thank you. I just kind of wanted to echo what Counselor Cassett and Counselor Faulkner said, and just comment on the importance of this committee and absolutely the need for resources. But I do think it would be more appropriate for a staff liaison to be that connection to resources rather than an elected official. I do think that an elected official could influence the comfortability present in a very vulnerable conversation, which is going to take place often. And if resources are needed, then that's why we have staff to bring it to the city manager, to take it to the mayor, so that we make sure that those resources are provided. So I just wanted, because I know that Councilor Castro mentioned like the need for this, part of the reason being that there needs to be resources provided. And that is absolutely true, but it would probably be most appropriate that as staff liaison provide those resources for this committee. So it stays community driven and there's no politics or politicians involved in their process. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let's say my philosophy is a bit different, given, you know, I'm a chair of a citizen advisory committee. And not once in my 5 years have I used my position as a counselor to influence the committee. Not a single time. That's the Citizens Committee. And so to think that there's going to be a shift in power dynamic is, I just don't believe that would be the case. And so I would ask the question to, we've got two counselors on this committee that sit as chairs as citizen-led advisory committees, and to pose that same question, have you ever used your authority as a counselor to shift the way that the committee is operating? And I don't think that it would cause any challenges whatsoever to have a counselor on this committee, or even the mayor. I mean, it's the mayor's committee. Put the mayor on the committee. I mean, ultimately, we need to ensure that this committee is supported, especially in a tumultuous time like right now, where immigrants' rights are being attacked. Immigrants do not feel safe in their own community. And we need to ensure that there is leadership that can stand with them on this committee. So to assume that there is going to be some type of, you know, dictatorship if a counselor or even the mayor were to step on this or to be a part of this council, I do not believe that would be the case. I have full faith and confidence in whether it be the current governing body members or future governing body members, that they will act with respect to our community members, because I don't think I've ever seen once in my 5 years on this council where a counselor that has been a chair of these citizen-led advisory committees has either led them in the wrong direction, treated them disrespectfully, or abused their authority. This is just only going to allow for more communication to be shared with this particular committee. There's so much information that counselors or the governing body is aware of that staff is not aware of. And to have a counselor or the mayor on this committee would only strengthen this and help to get work done in a more expedited manner, especially in a time when we need to be supporting our immigrant community. So this is why I believe it's imperative that there is at least somebody from the governing body member that sits on this committee. As mentioned, the committee has already been in support and voiced their support through vote of having a governing body member on this committee. What they did not agree with is having that person be a voting member. And that's where an amendment has come forward, is to change that current proposed role to take away those voting rights. And this is all coming from the committee. And this is the way we should be treating a committee such as this, is let the committee bring forth their recommendations and let the counselor or governing body member, whoever is sitting on that committee, be that facilitator to ensure that their work does not fall on the wayside. Because that's what I've seen on a lot of these citizen advisory committees, is that they do a lot of work, but then it stops. But the committees that have governing body members on it are able to facilitate that transfer of information and turn it into legislation, policy, etc. And we've seen the success of that, whether it's through BPAC, whether it's through EDAC, whether it's through the Community Development Committee. it's proven successful. So with that, I'm in full support of this proposal. And as I mentioned, we will soon be bringing forward an amendment that recognizes the recommendation from the Immigration Committee. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions, comments? Counselor Faulkner.
Fascinating about politics is we tend to look at the position of a person and apply a human being to it. So we're city councilors. We are individual human beings as well. And what I have noticed in politics after 30 years of being in politics is that we assume because we are good people and we are doing good things, that that will stand the test of time. And I think we can easily see that that is not the case. And so that's also why I am cautious about this kind of policy. I've been working with the city for 30 years as well. I was a lobbyist and worked with the city until I got elected. And I can assure you, I've been through many administrations and many city councilors, and sometimes you get a good person in a position and sometimes you don't. And you can't trust that your decision-making is going to stand the test of time because you're a good leader. There's going to be times where bad leaders will step forward and seize power. And so this is my cautionary feeling about it, is that I don't trust that having city councilors in positions where they could have undue influence on residents committees is a good idea. I would have them on none of the residents committees because of this component. I feel like the council, everybody's fairly good leaders, they have the right intention, but that's this council. I have seen other councils where that isn't the case. And that's what concerns me about doing this, is that it's a bad practice. We are building committees and commissions and boards reactionary based on community outrage about something, a city council wanting something, a mayor wanting something, a city manager wanting something. We are not building a consistent program of how to manage our committees. We have so many committees. It's so cumbersome for the constituents, and they're reactionary building of committees. It's not thoughtful, mindful building of committees. It's reactionary. And so that makes it dangerous for the community. That makes it dangerous for our leaders. And after the public safety package that I'm working on, I will then be moving on to trying to reorganize the committee process at the city. That we have too many. It's all been reactionary politics, and we need to look at it and make it consistent and have some rules around it and some guardrails so that the city isn't so cumbersome for the public.
Wonderful. Thank you, Counselor. And we should talk. Counselor Romero-Worth and I have a research request in, and we actually, our previous legislative research policy person, I have no idea what that title is, reached out to the National League of Cities, and they said that was something that they had never discussed. And so they were going to start doing some research around, best practices around resident advisory committees. How do we make them most effective? I will say that I am looking forward to that conversation, because I think that there's a lot of good points kind of on all sides of this around what are the benefits and what are the potential risks involved. And it is really important that we do take a comprehensive look. So I am looking forward to that conversation. Any other questions or comments at this time? And if not, we do have a procedural consideration. We are the only council committee that this is going to. So I don't think we would have a unanimous no vote, but we are the only committee that would pass it on to the governing body. Can you, one moment, please? So I do just want to make that comment, that if we want to move this on to governing body, that is within our power. So, and ours alone, it does not go to another committee. Thank you.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? I will go ahead and second. And let's go ahead and take a roll call.
Counselor Chavez,
No.
Counselor Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Faulkner,
No, explain my vote.
Counselor Cassett.
Yes, I would like to explain my vote. And I do believe that Counselor Castro is in the attendee room and so would be able to vote if we could promote her to a participant. Counselor Castro, are you there?
I am, thank you, and I've parked someplace.
Wonderful, thank you.
Counselor Castro,
Yes, and I'd like to explain my vote.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you so much. Counselor Faulkner, do you want to go ahead and time yourself for 1 minute vote explanation?
I like everything else that's in this legislation other than the counselor being put on this board. So everything else I would be a yes on, that I'm a no on.
Thank you. Counselor Castro, would you like to explain your vote? And you have 1 minute.
Yes, I just want to say that I am working closely with the committee, and I do understand that we want to put community first. So I will also be working with the task force at the county, which is not publicly announced and very safe in terms of best practices for keeping people anonymous if they would like to be. And so if anyone wants information on how that's working and the collaboration there, please reach out.
Thank you. And then I also asked to explain my vote. I did want this moved on to governing body, actually for similar reasons as Counselor Faulkner, as I do really, I really like everything else in this bill. I am torn on this one. I will take the opportunity between now and the next governing body meeting to go ahead and reach out to, the members of the Immigration Committee, and really be able to get their viewpoints. One of the things that we need to work on is that we just know if a committee votes yes or no, and we rarely get to have that conversation. So as we continue to look at this issue, I think that's going to be one of the big pieces. Thank you. All right, moving on to our one item on discussion. This is consideration of resolution number 2025 to be numbered later, sponsored by Counselor Carol Romero Worth, Counselor Signe Lindell, myself, and Counselor Alma Castro. It is a resolution establishing a plan for use of budgeted funds to study hiring council staff. We once again have Marcy Anarino here, as well as City Manager Scott is here as well. I had asked to put this on discussion simply because I knew that there was going to be an amendment, and so skipped a step of having to pull it. But at this time, if there are questions or comments on the resolution, I'll move to the committee. Anything? Okay, can I get a main motion on the floor?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and then I would like to introduce Amendment A. This is really technical. I didn't like the fact that there were two things on the same line, so we just moved it down to the next and reordered it. So on page 2, line 1, we will insert a D before provide to make provide the beginning of a new lettered section and re-letter accordingly. So there's no substantive change. This is just a grammatical, technical change.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve the amendment. Is there a second?
So second, I'm sorry, I didn't see the amendment, but I'll second it.
Oh, if you refresh, it should be there. Were you able to find it?
Keeps kicking me out that we have a challenge with this platform.
Are you on Chrome or Safari?
I am on Chrome.
Okay. I had Safari issues. I can go ahead and read it in context just so everybody makes sure that they know.
Sure.
So essentially what it does is, starting on page, let's just go ahead to page 1, line 24. It said summarize the staffing model for Santa Fe County Commissioners and the new policy positions being implemented for state legislatures, including salaries and relevant job descriptions. Provide a proposed staffing model that reflects the needs and interests of the city councilors, ... So I just separated those two. So there would be this looking at the county and the state, And then a totally separate item is to provide a proposed staffing model that reflects the needs and interests of the city, because I did not want to imply that what we find from the county or the state is necessarily going to be what is correct for us. And they're two different tasks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I see Council Romero Worth's amendment in here. I've refreshed. So you're said page.
Oh, yeah. So that is the amendment that we are discussing. So do you see it in context?
Breaks up on page 2. It shows.
Yeah. Page 2, line 2 would be the new.
D and E separates.
Well, it separates C and D, but yeah, then it creates an E.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Can I please get a roll call on the amendment?
Counselor Castro,
Yes.
Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Counselor Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Faulkner,
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you so much. And then on the main motion, if there is nothing else from the committee, can I please get a roll call?
Counselor Castro,
Yes.
Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Counselor Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Faulkner,
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
motion passes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, guys, we're getting out so much earlier than I thought. I'm very proud of us. Moving on to matters from staff. Hey, staff, would you like to introduce yourself? Or whoever wants to introduce you.
Hi, everyone. I am on day 3 with the City of Santa Fe. I am your new Community Development Director. My name is Elisa Montoya. Should have started with that. And thank you, Madam Chair and counselors. Should have also started with that. Rookie mistakes. But I am just so excited to be here. I am from Santa Fe. I went to Chaparral Elementary. I grew up on Candelero Street, actually. And I went to St. Mike's, Santa Fe High my freshman year, but I ended up graduating from St. Mike's. I left home for about 25 years. I went to college, grad school, moved to DC for 14 years, worked in the House and the Senate, a lot of political campaigns for Barack Obama. I ran his national Latino outreach. And for the past 7 years, I've been back here in Santa Fe working at Meow Wolf. I served as in-house counsel for 3 years, and I served on the community impact team, and I ran facilities. I get nervous, so give me a second.
This is the easy crowd. Don't worry.
This is-
We're the warm up.
Just talking about myself this is new. This is new. And I ran corporate facilities and insurance and set up the workplace safety program for a company that grew by over 1,000 employees during my tenure. And I just could not be happier than to have the privilege to serve the city. And I just look forward to getting to know everyone here and just wrapping my arms around these issues that are so important to ensuring that our community is prosperous and that we continue to welcome people to Santa Fe to visit. So thank you very much. And I do have a couple matters to share with you, some updates that the team is doing. So the Office of Economic Development, they launched business centers with the library. And our first Beyond the Business event was a success. We did have 20 people in attendance, but we're hoping to launch the entire program in June. This weekend, the team will be tabling at the spring runoff at the Santa Fe Brewing Company. And I don't know if you're aware of this event, but it supports outdoor recreation. I've been before, it's a lot of fun. And also, they'll also be tabling at the Children's Museum run on Sunday. Next week, they're going to have office hours at Del Norte Credit Union on Cerrillos on Monday. They're coordinating with the Guadalupe Street construction, a Guadalupe Street construction related meeting for businesses. The date is tentatively set for May 13th. They also recently participated in the Santa Fe Metropolitan Planning Organization Let's Talk About Cerrillos event. They're helping them gather input from small businesses along the corridor. And in the Office of Affordable Housing. They're preparing to release the Affordable Housing Trust Fund RFP. They aim to do this within the next 30 days. They're planning a next housing meetup, and they're also beginning to work on updating housing data and preparing a funding retrospective and implementation plan. So they're doing some really good work, and this is just all exciting to me. I'm just so happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director Montoya. We are very, very happy to have you. I'm very excited. When Mark told me, I was like, oh, finally, we've been trying to get her here for a while. So very excited. Welcome. I'm very excited to work with you at the Quality of Life Committee. Director Hammond-Paul.
Madam Chair, councilors, echoing the excitement, very excited to have a counterpart in the Community Development Department and to be co-staffing this committee with her and working together over the next handful of months, years, and beyond. You know, at first I was going to say I was worried that we weren't going to have Johanna to give all of the great updates, but it seems like we have a great new replacement there. From the community health and safety side, a few updates. So this Saturday, the 27th at the Teen Center, from 8 to 12, we'll be having registration for our Teen Center summer program. Also, as many of you know, and I believe Councilor Chavez has been deeply involved in the age-friendly work that the city is working towards. We are moving towards an age-friendly study, and one of the first steps of that is kicking off age-friendly listening sessions in May. So that is being led by Director Sanchez, Maria Sanchez Tucker. Another note on something that's exciting for the Community Services Department within Community Health and Safety is Mona Baca and Director Sanchez Tucker have been accepted into the Area Agency on Aging Leadership Program in May, which is a 6-week program that they'll both be completing. And then lastly, but not least important, on the 27th at Lafarge Library Community Room, we are having Dia de los Niños and El Día de los Libros, Children's Day and Book Day, which will be a variety of activities directed for children, bilingual story time, games with local authors, and a handful of other activities. So we welcome folks to attend that, and I believe there's an additional component of that will be hosted by the Children's Museum as well.
Wonderful. And remind me, what's that date for the Dia de los Niños?
Saturday as well.
Oh, the Saturday as well. Okay. And then I think
It goes 27th through the 30th.
so
it's
for
actually
27 is a
yes.
Sunday. So, right? Yeah. So is it is the
The
Teen
20
Center?
26th.
Okay. So
Yeah.
Teen Center registration on Saturday, April 26th.
Yes.
Dia de los Niños on Saturday, April 26th, starting.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My apologies.
Calendars are sometimes rough things. Marcella? Wonderful. Thank you. Any matters from the committee today? Councilor Garcia?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome on board, Director Montoya. Welcome to the fun.
Anything else? Oh, Councilor Chavez?
I just wanted to say welcome to Director Montoya as well. I look forward to working with you. Like Councilor Garcia said, welcome to the fun. You'll have a lot of fun if you're going to be there on Wednesday. That'll be the real deal.
Don't worry, I have chocolate covered espresso beans in my desk when you need them. So I offer them to everybody worldwide. All right. Matters from the chair. It was mentioned the move for the museum is on Sunday. So great way to support one of our main family friendly outposts in the city. So if you are interested in supporting them, definitely come out, run or walk a 5K. Or just hang out and have fun. Our next meeting will be May 7th, and I'm sure I will see many of you tomorrow for the beginning of budget hearings. And with that, at 6:26 p.m., we are adjourned. Thanks all.